being rent burden mean to them? What does it look like for them?
What is a COLA?
COLA is a cost of living adjustment. It is something that everyone needs across all of the UCs, students, workers, all of us, except for the people in there.
The billionaires, you mean the billionaires.
Yeah, they're probably fine.
So why is it a struggle to get a cost of living here at the UC?
I'm not sure. I don't know why. I mean, they know how much it costs to live here, to live in California. I'm a student at UC Santa Cruz. They know how much.
What does it cost to live in Santa Cruz? I mean, who can afford to get a place? Because how do you live?
Not easily. I have a fellowship and a spouse, and that's how I make it work. But if I had like children, I know some of my friends have kids and have to take care of their own families, and it doesn't work, and people take out loans, and it's...
So people are going into debt.
Yep.
And these regents are probably making money from the debt.
They definitely are. They probably make money from my rent. Like, they're probably money from all of this.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Do you think that the university has been corporatized? Basically, it's not run for the people and the students, but big business?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it was ever any different, but maybe it'll be different one day.
So there's been a strike of the graduate students at UC Santa Cruz. What is that like, and what are their concerns?
We need a cost of living adjustment. That's what it is. And until we get a fair cost of living adjustment, we'll be on strike.
What is the income of an average graduate student who's teaching?
You're making about, Chris, you know?
Depends on the department, but it's between like $1,900 and $2,200 after tax. So, like, I make $1,900 just as a GSR. So my rent is $1,200. So you do the math. That's, you know, upwards of like 60+% of just your income goes straight to rent.
So I mean, with the kind of rent costs and living costs, it sounds like it's poverty wage to survive for a working class graduate student.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes they're giving you their check late, so then it rolls over into.
Why would it be late?
I mean, they just don't have their.
Late. Yeah.
My grant, I was awarded a grant in July, and I just got it last Thursday. So that's just how the system can be very disorganized in terms of awarding money that you like apply for to get on top of your other TA stuff and your GSR stuff. So I don't know, it's disorganized. At the same time, we have local city politics that are trying to, they're doing whatever they can to prevent any sort of rent control measure. So it's not just within the UC, it's beyond that within city politics. And I don't know, like.
So these regents, Richard Blum, I mean, I understand some of them are actually property developers, speculators themselves. I mean, are there any students or workers on the UC Regents? I doubt it.
That's probably an affirmative no. Yeah, I don't see anyone because that's.
You got to be a millionaire or billionaire to be on the.
It's just once you have those cards in place, you can make money just through debt peonage and whatever. So.
What do you teach?
I teach environmental studies. Thankfully, I'm not TAing this particular quarter, so I have a little bit more freedom than some other people to just like be out and about. But yeah, I've TA'd every other quarter before this. So.
Well, environmental studies. I mean, it seems like we're in a cataclysm, really, with the environment. What could the UC system be doing with this emergency crisis? What should they be doing?
I mean, we need to have like a social safety net first, because otherwise people are commuting 2 hours to go to school, talking about emissions and climate change, but if your like local environment is not livable, it's not sustainable. And so, I mean, that's one of the first things, is just having like a safety net that can give people access to food, access to housing, all these things that should be like goods for all. But without that, it's just a divide and conquer.
I mean, the system that we have is if you have money, you're okay.
Yeah.
If you're a billionaire and you make money, that's okay. But they don't want free housing or free health care or free anything, actually.
No, I mean, totally. But that's the sort of paradigm that a lot of the activism here is like operating off of. What would it be to have, you know, free food and have, you know, dining halls open for the people? This is supposed to be public universities, but, you know, I can't go to campus without worrying about getting a parking ticket for $80 and then going into debt. And I've seen multiple cars get booted because they can't pay for their parking tickets. And then I'm TAing 3 days a week and having to be on campus 5 days a week just to TA. And every day I'm there, I'm having to find, you know, parking, get there on time. So it's just...
Sounds like a nightmare.
It's kind of a trap in many ways. You know, there's things that I'm grateful for just to be able to, you know, be a student and be able to be in a learning environment, but there's a lot of uphill battles that makes it so you're not even actually able to learn half the time because your hands are tied, you're under-resourced, you're overworked. So,
what's your name? So are you, this strike of the graduate students, is it going to continue? What's happening with it?
Yeah, it can continue until we get a fair COLA.
And the university can afford it?
The university can definitely afford it. That's not really the question. It's their priorities.
I'm Natalie Ng. I'm an anthropology graduate student at UCSC.
The graduate students have been on strike at UC Santa Cruz. What are the issues that have brought graduate students out?
We make about $20,000 a year before taxes, and we live in Santa Cruz where the rent is an average of, I'd say, $1,000 minimum for a room. That's a room in maybe a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, right? So graduate students who have health issues, graduate students who are parents, graduate students who have disabilities, really many graduate students cannot afford to make ends meet.
And the UC is a pretty rich system. These regents are very wealthy. Most of them are millionaires or billionaires even. Why haven't they properly funded graduate students so they can survive in California?
Because they're greedy. Because they're hoarding resources for themselves. UC has already been investigated and they've been found to hide money, so we say eat the regents.
And I mean, they were hiding money and covering up to the legislature. Why haven't these executives been removed? I mean, it seems if you were working for a company and you hid money at the company, they like to say they're run by a business. If they hid money at a company, don't you think that's a fireable offense?
It's a good question. You should ask the regents that.
It seems like they're doing things which are improper, but there's no accountability of these executives and top officials. Were any officials fired for hiring money?
No.
Money?
No.
So how long have you been on strike?
We've been on strike for about 2 months now.
And you're withholding your grades. And what is the management saying? What is UC Regents and management saying about this?
At first they told us that it was an illegal work stoppage. Then we asked them to locate the law that made this illegal. Eventually they changed the language to say that it was an unauthorized strike action. They are refusing to meet with us. They are refusing to give us an offer for COLA. They are telling our department chairs behind closed doors that they have a fellowship that they might give us if we turn in our grades, but we know that that's not true. We know that we have to keep striking. We know that we can't give up our power.
And, I mean, it's a rich university. They have these hospitals that are making a lot of money. Do you have any confidence that you're going to have any accountability or even know have a transparent situation as far as the funding of the university?
No, I don't have any confidence that there will be accountability. We are hoping that we can solve this at a local level. The chancellor has said that UCOP is saying that they can't meet with us, so that UCOP is prohibiting...
What is UCOP?
The UC Office of the President. So they're saying that the UC Office of the President is prohibiting local administration from meeting with UCSC grad students to solve this issue. So we're saying UCOP, get out of the way.
And if they wanted to negotiate, they could meet with you and negotiate. That's what you want.
Yes. there is nothing preventing them from meeting with us to negotiate. Our local UAW 2865 sent them a letter last week saying that they want to reopen bargaining over the cost of living. They initially said that they were worried about an unfair labor practice because we were not aligned with the UAW 2865. This is now proven to be false, so they have no reason to not meet with us.
And for the graduate students, this action, radical action you've taken, it sounds like it's a survival issue, that your members, the graduates can't survive on the present wages.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I sent out an email to administration this morning summarizing some of the anonymous grad students' stories that we've received. It shows that grad students have gotten mold poisoning from inadequate housing. They have been traumatized and exhausted from not having places to sleep, from sleeping in their offices, from sleeping in their cars. They have been traumatized from dealing with abusive landlords and not being able to leave. This is a very serious situation, and many of us are just struggling to survive. So,
what does it say about California, the richest state in the country, 170 billionaires, so much wealth in San Francisco where you're at, 70 billionaires, yet, you know, it's like survival for graduate students, for UC students, and who are going to be the future.
Right. I mean, it shows that the housing speculation here is out of control. I think the Moms for Housing campaign in Oakland really revealed that there are plenty of empty houses. They aren't being filled with people who need them, right? In Santa Cruz in particular, we are being affected by Silicon Valley that is now expanding to drive up our rental prices, and the university itself is admitting far more undergraduate students than it has the capacity to house, and because of that, they're also driving up rental prices.
And as an anthropologist, where is humanity going? Because it seems like more and more people are being destroyed in this environment. They can't survive.
Well,
the future of humanity as an anthropologist, I don't know what area of anthropology.
I study cultural anthropology, so cultural anthropologists often look at sort of small situations and think about these broader trends, right? So in my own research, I'm looking at special economic zones and displacement of people on the China-Laos border. Of course, our situation is different than that situation, but there are some similarities in terms of privatization of land that used to be a commons, that used to be public, in terms of displacement, in terms of, you know, the UC's history of displacement of indigenous people. So
UC's in the property development business.
Right, exactly, yeah.
It doesn't seem it's property development for housing for the graduate students and the students.
Right, so they have property investments for housing and they are not allowing students to live there.
So they have actual developments, but they're not allowing the students to live there.
They do have actual housing developments. They are at market rate, so they're not the kind of housing that grad students need. They're not the kind of housing that grad students can afford. Right now, on-campus housing costs, I believe it's $1,300 a month for a bedroom in a shared space.
So
and we make a little under $2,000 a month, and that's only 9 months out of the year.
So it sounds like that the investments in the business of the university is really directed towards profiteering and not taking care of the faculty, the students.
It would seem that way. It would seem that someone's profiting.
Hi, well, my name's Jack. I'm a grad student at UC Santa Cruz, striking Wildcat, and today I was feeling a bit ill, so I came here instead of going to work. Forgive the lack of poetry right now. I just have a couple of little things to say that might be worth sharing. The first is like a little bit of history about how the grad grading strike sort of panned out over about a year. And then I guess like the key lesson for me about why that has at least so far worked, even though that struggle is not over. In short, it goes back to about last winter or last spring when a group of people began to formulate this demand for a cost of living adjustment to bring grad students out of rent burden. At that time we were talking about grad students only because we felt like we had to organize ourselves before we could reach out to other people and begin organizing with them or through them or for them, etc. At the start of the fall quarter, we went away for a weekend to plan a strategy for the year, which would have led to a grading strike in the spring. So suffice to say, things moved a bit more quickly, which is basically to say that we were really surprised at how quickly or how many people were willing to strike when that question went out. So my advice to any graduate students at other campuses right now would be just to ask the question of your grads. I think what was the reason we were effective was because we had a coherent and small demand. Well, not a small demand, but like a simple demand. And we had a tactic that was adequate to that demand. So yeah, I think particularly at Santa Barbara, where people are also on sick out strike today, and maybe people are organizing in UCLA and Berkeley, potentially beyond that, just to, if you're a graduate student, if you have access to emails, etc., just ask the question if people are willing to strike. To undergraduates, I would say that the reason that this grading strike is so effective and so terrifying for people up there is because it cuts off, it's like a choke point, it cuts off the tap of your debt moving over to the next quarter. So as graduate students, that's something we can access. We can just withhold the grade so that it doesn't move over. That money, by the way, now makes up more than half of the US government's financial assets. Which means that more than 50, I think it's 51% right now of the US government's assets are tied up in tuition that you guys are not paying now, but are going to pay interest the moment you graduate. In case it's worth hearing, like what that means is shortly after graduating, you will get a phone call, you will get letters telling you how much interest is due on the rent that you paid in your first year when you lived on campus, in your tuition every single semester or quarter that goes after that. So this is just to say that as graduate students, we can be affected by turning the tap off on that just for a little bit. You guys really have the power to stop that and to change that.
Everywhere we go! Everywhere we go! People